In this segment, we'll go into factor quadratic equations using the X method. Now, here we have a quadratic equation, x squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. Your first step is you want to make sure that the equation is equal to 0. So you're going to get everything on one side of the equation. So this is the case here. So we're good to go. Now, we're going to make sure that it is written in standard form. All right. So if it's written in standard form, we want to identify our ax, our a. We have bx plus c. We want to identify our a, b, and c. So the a, we want to look for the x squared for the a. So in this case, we have a positive 1, so a is 1. Our b, we want to look for the x. So look for the x. Negative 5 is our b, so we're going to write negative 5 for b. And then c stands for constant. We're going to look for the constant number. So in this case, it's negative 14. Now, using the X method, we want to multiply the A times the C. So 1 times negative 14 is negative 14. And then on the bottom below we have B. So our B is negative 5. So I'm going to write that negative 5 on the bottom. Now, we want to find two factors that we can multiply to get negative 14, but add to get negative 5. So I'll always like to start with 1. So 1 times 14 will give us negative 14, but notice how the product is negative. So one of these has to be negative. Now, if my sum is a negative number, then that means our larger number has to be negative, so we don't want to make this 14 into a negative number. So 1 times negative 14 is negative 14, which turns out correct. But 1 plus negative 14 is not right, so we can't use those two numbers. Let's try the next numbers. 2 times, remember a large number has to be negative. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. And then 2 plus negative 7 is equal to negative 5. So this checks out. So we can write our numbers, our factors, on the left and to the right. So it doesn't matter what order. I can have my positive 2 and negative 7. So next we want to take our a value, which is 1, and divide it by each factor. All right, and we want to make sure that our factors are simplified. So 2 over 1 is already simplified. Negative 7 over 1 is already simplified. So now we're ready to write our two binomials. All right, so our denominator is 1. So we have 1x, or x, and our numerator is our second term, plus 2. And then here we got negative 7 over 1. Our denominator is x, 1x. So we write our x for the first term. And then negative 7 is for the second term, the second number. Now, we can set each one of our terms equal to 0 and simply solve for x. So x plus 2 equals 0. We want to subtract 2 from both sides. So x is equal to negative 2. So we have one of our factors is going to be negative 2 and 0. And then we want to add 7 to both sides. So x is equal to positive 7. So our second solution is going to be 7 and 0. And we are done. All right, so let's take a look at another problem. Here we got x squared minus 4x plus 4 equals 0. So we want to make sure that our a quadratic equation is set equal to 0, we want to identify our A, our B, and our C. So remember, our A is in front of x squared, so we have a positive 1. B is in front of x, so we have a negative 4. And our C is a constant number, which is positive 4. So now, we want to multiply our 1 times 4, and we have 4 on the top. Our B is negative 4, so we're going to write negative 4 on the bottom. Now we're going to find two numbers that we can multiply to get a positive 4, but add to get negative 4. So start with 1 times 4, which is positive 4, and 1 plus 4, but we have a negative 4 as a sum. So if I have a negative 4 as my sum, then that means they both have to be negative, and then these have to be negative, but this is still not going to work out, so we can go to the next one. So negative 2 times negative 2 is going to equal a positive 4. That works out. And then we have negative 2 plus negative 2, which is equal to negative 4. They both check out, so we have our negative 2 and we have negative 2. And we want to divide our factors by A, so we're going to divide negative 2 by 1 and negative 2 over 1. So our two binomials are going to be 1x, or just x, minus 2, and then we have, again, x minus 2. Now, if we set them both equal to 0, we want to solve for x. So notice how we can only have to do it one time. So if we add 2 to both sides, our x is going to equal 2. So our solution is 2 and 0. So we have the same thing here. So we have what we call a double roots. All right, so here's the next one. So here we have 2x squared plus 2x minus 12. Now, we want to first make sure it's set equal to 0, which it is. And then we need to look for a greatest common factor. So we can pull out a 2, a common 2. So you want to divide everything by 2. All right. So 2x squared divided by 2 will give us x squared. 2x divided by 2 will give us 1x. And negative 12 divided by 2 is 6. Now, so remember, every time you take out a greatest common factor, you must leave our greatest common factor on the outside. Now we're ready to find our A, our B, and our C. So our A, we have x squared, 1 is our coefficient. Our B, we have 1x, so we have 1 for B. And our C is a constant number for negative 6. Now we have 1 times negative 6 is going to go on top. Our B is positive 1. So now we need to find our factors. So we start with 1 times 6 is equal to negative 6. But we got a negative product, so we got to make sure that we have a negative numbers. But if I add 1 plus 6, I should end up with a 1. But since I got a positive number, that means our large number has to be positive, and then we have to have a smaller number being negative. So negative 1 times 6 is negative 6, which checks out. Negative 1 plus 6 does not equal 1, so that's not going to work. Let's try negative 2 times 3, which will give us negative 6. But if I add negative 2 plus 3, that gives us a positive 1, so that works. So now we have negative 2 and we have 3. So look at our A is 1. We want to divide that by 1. So our two factors are going to be, don't forget we still have 2 on the outside. We have 1x minus 2 and we have 1x plus 3 equals 0. Now we want to set each one of our terms equal to 0. So 2 is equal to 0. Then we have x minus 2 is equal to 0. And then we have x plus 3 is equal to 0. Now 2 equals 0 is definitely not correct. So that's not one of our terms. We can add 2 to both sides here. So x is equal to positive 2. So this is one of our solutions. And then for x plus 3, we want to subtract 3 from both sides. So x is equal to negative 3. So we have negative 3 and 0 as our second solution. All right, so let's try one more equation. We have 2x squared minus 3x minus 5. So this time we do not have a greatest common factor, and we have a number other than 1 for our a. So our a is equal to positive 2 this time. Our b is negative 3. Oops. And then our c is negative 5. So we want to multiply our a times c, which is 2 times negative 5. That is negative 10. And then we have our b is negative 3. Now we want to find our two numbers that we can multiply to get negative 10, but add to get negative 3. So we can start with 1 times 10 and 1 plus 10. But we have a negative 3, so that means, and we got a negative 10 for our product and a negative 3 for our sum. So what does that mean? Our larger number has to be negative for each one. So this works out, but 1 plus negative 10 is not negative 3, so it's not going to check out for either one. Let's try 2. 2 times negative 5 is equal to negative 10. That works out. But 2 plus negative 5 is equal to negative 3. That also works out. So we're going to write our two factors for 2 and negative 5. Now, just like before, we want to take our a, which is 2, and divide it by each factor and reduce. So 2 divided by 2 is, we can reduce that to 1 over 1. And negative 5 over 2 is not we cannot reduce that, so we're going to leave it just as it is. So make sure you reduce that. So now we're going to write our two binomials. We have 1 over 1, so our denominator is 1, so we're going to write our x plus 1. And then we have negative 5 over 2, which will be our 2x minus 5. Now set these equal to 0, and now we're ready to solve. So we're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So our first solution is x is equal to negative 1, which is going to be negative 1 and 0. But here we got a two-step equation, so we want to add 5 to both sides. And we have 2x is equal to positive 5, and then divide by 2. So x is equal to 5 over 2. So our solution is 5/2 and 0. All right. So for more more mathematical tutorials, please like, subscribe, comment on in the comment section below, and I hope to see you all real soon. Take care.